negotiate. One of the techniques is ask for more than you expect to get.
The way I find of creating those dynamic opportunities of Hi, I'm Nathan. I love to optimize health, mindset, dopamine stimulation, and utilize business systems to grow businesses fast in Western Australia. So we've been operating.
So we made a whole bunch of them, and we set out, this is West Front, and we set out in the front of the paddock.
Excellent, guys. So thanks for joining. It's quite a privilege to have you guys here because I know you have a background of some pretty big names out there. Yeah. Can you tell me a few of the people that you've connected with in the past in your work and a little bit more about your background?
Well, so I'm Ross Arnston. This is my partner, Garry Johnson, and we're the founders of the Infinite Mastery Consulting. And we have been in the seminar industry and personal development industry for decades. I don't even want to just tell people the actual number because I'll be dating myself too much, but it's been a long time. So as I was saying in the pre-interview, yes, I had a radio show a long time ago, and personal development has always been my thing. And so, I would, work with, people like Mark Victor Hansen, Bruce Lipton, Harbecker, Brian Tracy, those guys, all the big greats, Michael Gerber, there's just so many of them. And,
those guys are phenomenal. I was weaned on those guys. I was literally brought up and always had them playing in the background. Mum was a bit of a hippie, quite alternative. And those guys were on my radar 24/7. So that's awesome. Yeah.
And they're all great people. They really are. And I love working with them. Gary's worked with them, and we worked with different people at different times in our careers. And so we really just enjoy the heck out of it. And with each time that you're speaking to someone, you could have read all their books and listened to all their audios and all that kind of stuff. But when you're actually speaking, then all of a sudden something will just click, or they'll say something that you just like. They may have said it 1,000 times before, but it just hits you, and you're just like, oh. And then instead of interviewing, you're actually writing things down because you're just like, I don't want to forget this. This is just, these ideas start to flow into your head, and you're just like, oh my God. So so you have to stay very, very focused. But then the industry of the podcast has started, and that's really been just our joy. Simply because, as I was saying earlier, is that interviewing some of the big names is great, but really when you're interviewing some of the smaller town or some of the people who are on their way up, it's more personal, and you can get more information out of them, and it's just a more enjoyable conversation. And that's what we really, really love. Like this is the phenomenal. And we just met, but at the same time, it's just like we've been talking for a few minutes, and we're just like, oh, we have that in common. And that's the really cool thing, because like our market, our live stream is global. It's just like we have people from every corner of the planet, and that is so cool. And I didn't have that before. I was pretty much region the west coast of the United States. And but now, we can, the reach is so incredible, and then you get all these different people and these different experiences and these different ideas, and they're all coming in, and it's amazing. Gary lives in Canada. I live in the U.S.
Fantastic.
So we're what is it, about 150 miles away from each other now?
Yeah, about that, I guess. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So we get together a couple times a year in person, but we're on
a virtual world now.
We're on Zoom meetings almost every day. It's just like, going over different materials or different ideas, or at least, back and forth on Messenger, coming up with, different ideas. And then we have the people that we've met, that are in some parts of the States, some parts in Canada, England, Portugal, and
Australia.
There you go.
Australia, yeah, exactly, and Malaysia. I mean, it's just it. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the joy of technology, bringing it all together, making everyone accessible. That the same. I've got team all around the world that work with us. And I love the idea of the podcast, as you say, Ross, because it's kind of just an excuse to learn more. Like it's it's just a growth experience that we can be sitting here talking to each other and just, as you say, writing stuff down really quickly and asking all the personal coaching questions that you've always wanted to know.
Exactly. So, what we have found is that entrepreneurs and C-suite executives and many of the top athletes, they often, they reach this point where their businesses drain them instead of fueling their passions. And we specialize in assisting our clients in breaking free from that burnout and those income plateaus, and the stagnation. And we do that by aligning their businesses with their passions and their purposes, and here's the clincher. It's the same. Everybody's got the same issues, the same challenges, no matter where they live. And through mastering what we call the infinity process, they go beyond that traditional style of coaching and they achieve that exponential growth, that they've been looking for so long. And, and all this, because you're kind of that whole life type of coach as well, because they can do all of that and still reclaim that joy and that fulfillment that once inspired them in the very beginning to start what they're doing. And because they've lost that spark, they're just like, life becomes monotonous or business becomes monotonous, or they just, keep hitting that glass ceiling and they can't get any further and such.
Ross, tell me a bit more about that, because the passion and the purpose, tell me your mindset, and Garry, what do you feel is the starting point because for years I struggled to find purpose, where I knew I was supposed to be doing some sort of an altruistic thing for society and all this sort of stuff, but nothing really gelled with me. Right. So what is your way of identifying purpose? What's one of the easiest ways to do it in your mind?
Garry, why don't you grab that?
Well, so I think one of the most important things is, to kind of look at the big picture of what draws you and find ways to connect with what's at your source, what's at your core. Yeah. And a lot of people don't get that training, right? They don't get that, even just the direction of, hey, tune into what resonates most with you at your core and brings you joy. Like Ross said, we want to bring, because that joy, we believe, is kind of like like a tuning fork for your soul, right? And if you're not doing things that vibrate to that, then you're out of alignment with who you are. Right? And so sometimes there's some exploration, because we must grow up in a society or industry or in or even industries where you're constantly being told what you should do or where you should go and how you should be, as opposed to allowing you to kind of find that for yourself or encouraging that. And so there is some retraining of tapping into that and being aware of that and having awareness of what that is. And then there's the other part of it is overcoming we call sentinels that stop you from going to get those things and do those things, right? The things that come in and they're these little things that come and kind of crunch you down and say, no, you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that, you're going to get hurt, and it's not that they're bad necessarily, because the positive intention is they don't want you to get hurt, but they don't believe in or they don't see the value of a vision or what's resonating with you, because they were never taught it either.
I think that's key, isn't it? Not many of us are taught it, and not many of us actually have a clue what we actually like doing in the first place, right?
But how could we, right? Because we grew up in a school system which tells you that sit in that chair in that spot the whole time, and you can't, we're set up really for failure. Right. And in a sense of, and I always, it just blows my mind when you think about the school system, where you go to school and you go there not knowing things, right? You go there to learn things, and then you get punished when you get things wrong. Well, instead of punishing me, teach me what's right, and so it's a really kind of a backward system that kind of allows us to go inward and stay hidden from that going out and exposing yourself, kind of conditions us for that.
Yeah.
Right. And then we get in the workplace and it's even worse because it's just there's a whole other thing in that.
But but at the same, in that regards, you have the people in the workplace who are, the owners, the managers, whatever the case, they're conditioned by the same system. So they're managing like they were taught, from the very beginning. And it's just this perpetual cycle, that is very non-productive. It really is. And I think that's part of the reason why that you see, if you look at some of the research, is that, your straight A students, they actually don't succeed as well as the B's and the C's, because
a lot of billionaires out there are dyslexic and don't see things the same way.
Exactly. So, and part of that is that they learned how to get over past challenges and obstacles. They definitely didn't have the victim mode and such, but at the same time, they're more willing to take risks.
And I think too, Ross, I think that there's also a window of opportunity where, as we're growing up, I believe, and I've seen, and from my experience, there's a window of opportunity for a lot of people where your heartstring, if you will, it sings to you, and you either listen to it or you don't. And that, I believe, that window, from what I've seen and what and the books I've read and successful people and that I've worked with, between 12 and 15 years old, some spark happens. Some shift occurs, some insight happens that goes, whoa, and wakes that person up, and they listen to it and it sticks with them. And in that window, because we're bombarded with the peer pressure, puberty, all that other stuff, we don't listen to it because we're caught up with all the other crap.
It's the conformity.
Yeah.
Conform. And those who don't conform are, to some degree, and I don't, the punishment that's involved. To some degree of punishment. I don't mean that they're beaten or anything like that, but they're told no.
Even ostracized, right? Or that's the weird, or that's the nerd, or whatever. Yeah, it happens in one way or another, for sure.
Yeah, and look at all the nerds now. They're freaking running the world.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, my son is the same, and as a parent, often I'll have to stop myself saying, be quiet, be respectful.
Well, because we got conditioned hard. Yeah, I get it.
Absolutely. And then you sort of pull yourself back and you go, oh, actually, well, he's just trying to express himself, or she's just trying to, grow her personality. And we're trying to put them in this little pigeonhole. And that's no good. That's terrible, isn't it?
And what I have found, whether it be with parenting or whether it be with, managing people, is that, society itself tends to swing to one direction or the other. And such, and it's just like, there's a balance in the middle. It's harder to manage people and maintain that balance, but they're more productive. It works better.
Talking about sorry, mate.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, talking about productivity, my background is in business, and I just love anything related to how can we grow our business more. You guys are obviously very focused on that too. What sort of systems, tools, and techniques do you find most effective? Because you've got a slightly different way of coaching to take people beyond those limits of, say, income caps and things like that.
Right.
What do you find are some of the most effective techniques that you sort of people do to take your business, to take your mindset to the next level, to grow your income?
Part of it comes down to what we were just talking about. Is finding that conditioning that they've been living with, and it's finally gotten in their way. And there's a lot of that. And as Garry was saying, the sentinels that people have, where those are the little voices in the back of your head, And one of the best parts of that process is, like, a lot of times we'll say, okay, you hear that voice in the back of your head, and I'm like, yes, whose voice is it?
Right.
Is it you? Because normally it's not their voice.
Yes.
It's
good point.
Mom, or it's dad, or it's
I'm just
grandma,
thinking mom,
or it's it's Mrs. Anderson, your third grade teacher. And then there's just this realization, and once you identify it, once you put a face to it, then it no longer has an effect on you.
It has less of an effect. I think some people still can, but at least now you have choice. And you can look at strategies to then deal with what that voice is, or what it's saying, and the impact it has.
Yeah. And that's part
the
of what
awareness, right?
That's what we do is we show people that awareness, and then the different techniques where they can deal with it. And it's just like, this is, well, I need to get rid of it. It's like, no, that's part of you. It's there to protect you. It thinks it's protecting you. When you tell mom, when you're 16, as Garry is saying, when you're 15, 16 years old, and you tell mom that, I want to be, a rock star. Oh, you need to get a real job. You need to do this. And all she's doing, it's not that she doesn't have faith in you, but she doesn't want to see you fail. She doesn't want to see you get hurt. She doesn't understand probably your passion. And, she thinks it may be just a fad, or that you're just infatuated with, with a star, and whatever the case may be and such. And they're just trying to protect you and such. And then you have to make a choice. Is like, well, am I going to follow their advice, and stop doing what I'm doing? Or am I going to make a decision and say, this is what I want to do. This is the direction I want to go. Will you help me do this so I don't fail as badly? Or as, so there's always going to be failures is what I mean. There's always going to be these, the step backward, the 3 steps forward, the step backwards, 2 steps backwards sometimes, and 1 step forward. There are always going to be those. And, and my opinion is that, that's what a parent's job is, to help you go the direction that you want to go, whether they agree with it or not.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, listen, okay, I don't really think that's the direction to go, but I'm going to help you the best I possibly can. I'm going to help guide you, or maybe show you different direction, or find the people that can help you, so that struggle isn't as bad. Or as hard and such. And some people just don't even need it, because it's that pain of the struggle that makes them so great.
Right.
When you talk about tools, right, one of the tools that we alluded to is becoming aware of what the sentinels are in your life. And so, a sentinel is a person or a thing that kind of watches or stands as if it's watching, right? So it's guarding and trying to prevent, it's preventing oncomers from attacking the status quo, right? And they show up in different ways. So we talk about, 4 different types of sentinels. One is the concerned sentinel, is where they love you and they're just concerned that you're going to get hurt. So it's like the mom and the dad and the family, that they don't want you to kind of go into that business because they think you're going to fall victim to what they see other people, get hurt with. Right. So they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart. But sometimes when that comes across, it kind of deflates the entrepreneurial energy or drive. Or like, oh man, why nobody's supporting me? But because you don't understand the coming from the sentinel and why it's happening. Right. And the other type of sentinel is what we call a jealous sentinel. So a jealous sentinel is someone who genuinely they're in competition with you and they don't want you to win. Right. So some part of them feels that they can get an edge by deflating your balloon.
Right.
And so when you recognize that, you can say, okay, well, you're just being a jealous sentinel. It has nothing to do with me. That's all about you. Right.
Yep.
And then the third sentinel is the you sentinel, which is just crap you make up in your head. It's just based on falsehoods and assumptions and all those kinds of things. And you convince yourself that inner dialogue has truth behind it. Right. And then the fourth sentinel is one we call the TFFG syndrome. Okay, the TFFG virus, and it's called the 3 feet from gold syndrome.
Right.
Where you work at, and the analogy comes from when the gold mine rushes were happening in North America, the miners would go out and they would they get all their gumption, their excitement, and all their tools. They'd go out, they'd start mining, they'd find they dig, and them didn't find anything. And so they get frustrated, they leave all their stuff, and they just kind of go back home. And new people would come in, and they've got their excitement and go, oh, there's already a tunnel here. Let's just go where it goes. And they pick up the gold, and then 3 feet later, they keep digging, and 3 feet later, there's the gold. But the 3 feet from gold syndrome is where you give up before success actually occurs.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there's you have that awareness as well around that 3 feet syndrome where you're close, but also knowing, like, I've been in businesses in the past where I thought I was 3 feet away.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, I was about 300 miles away. I think the awareness around, you know, that concept and when to say, all right, enough is enough. And so in your mind, how do you determine the difference?
I think that's where, so you're in, but if you think about when you don't want to give up, okay, and you just like, you know, and you know, you're right, you're miles away from it. And so, but then, you know, that's where I that you need to have, you know, a party or a second party, somebody that you can talk to, so that, because sometimes your ego just gets in the way and you're just like, no, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this.
Yeah.
And you're either repeating the same mistakes over and over again, and somebody can point that out and say, well, why don't you look at this week instead, so they can see, you know, we always like to look at everything from that 10,000-foot view. So they can see the entire picture instead of just that focus where you're at. Okay, that tunnel, that mine that you just dug, but this is all you can see. When they can see, like, well, there's a whole pile of gold just sitting on the ground over here.
Yeah,
you know, it's you know, it's just a different direction. So you have that. So you a lot of people, you know, especially entrepreneurs, they just, and it's like, no, I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm doing. And they have to, you know, they need to just, you know, step back and really just get some advice. You know, find somebody who is not associated with them. I don't recommend a family member or a spouse or anything like that. Somebody who is just, you know, can just give them raw data and say, listen, you know, this is what I see. What do you see? And it's a long conversation, and it can be a hard conversation, but it can also be very empowering.
There's so many. Sorry, mate. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's some other tools I think that come into mix here too, right? I think that with your scenario that you're talking about, I think the first thing is to reconnect with the purpose that the person has. What's that major purpose or that vision? Because if you're losing sight of that and getting caught up in the ego stuff that Ross is talking about, that's when you end up in the scenario where you earn your bank account and underneath it.
3 mortgages.
Because it's not ego, right? Yeah.
I'll give you a little story. I was involved in the health industry. I did really had a bunch of businesses, health shops, supplement range that was sold across Australia. Sold it all up, great exit. And then I thought, talking about ego, Ross, ego kicked in. Oh yeah, I can do anything. What should I do next? And my family was in food. I said, great, let's open some restaurants. I can do that. Turns out I couldn't, and turns out, you know, 10 to 20 grand hemorrhaging cash every month later. I had to, and I did exactly, Ross, you're talking about, having a third party look at it. I had a mentor, and he turned around and said, why don't you just get rid of the restaurants and run the other bits of your business that are successful? And I was like, well, I can't do that because my ego is too bloody big, and it won't let me do that. And then months and months went by, more and more cash got burnt, and then I thought, maybe there's something in that. And swallowing that bitter pill was just so challenging to say.
And let's go back to understanding about what we're talking about, conditioning. We're conditioned that failure is just absolutely bad.
Right.
You know, when failure is simply a learning experience.
Oh, 100%.
And you know,
only way you can learn. It's
exactly. You know, and sometimes that failure, if we want to call it that experience, but you know, let's say a restaurant, for example, you know, I mean, a lot of information needs to be collected prior to that when you're creating your business plan and such. It's like, okay, on a norm, you know, this is the average. It's going to take, you know, 3 years before you're going to become profitable and such. And then from there, it's going to be 2 years before you're, 2 years of breaking even, and then you might spike. Going off of what you just said, oh no, my food is even better. I'm going to do that faster. So we have these expectations, and we talk about expectations a lot. So we have these expectations, and it's all time-based, but it's not logic-based. It's just like, no, this is going to happen at this particular time, and then we get discouraged, or we get even more stubborn, and we dig in, and now it's like, well, I've spent all this money. I don't want to lose all this money. And you just, you know, I mean, just 1,000 things just start to happen. And then, you know, that's where it's just like, you know, I need to get some consulting from somewhere else to look at this picture and get my emotions out of it. You know, it's like guys who say, you know, I'm going to quit my job and become a day trader, you know, but I don't understand that, you know, being a day trader and such is, you know, you can't be emotional. You know, anybody that does any kind of trading, it's just like you have to take the emotion out of it, win or lose. It's just, it is. That's
Part of the process.
That's part of the process. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. You talk a little bit about mindset shift. I've said some in your previous podcasts. Mind shift from a poverty conscious to a more abundant process. I personally, I find that's very relevant for me. Personally, I focus on like saving more than perhaps spending and investing. For example, I got this new printer the other day, and I've literally told 100 people about this printer because it's from saving me, you know, an ink cartridge, which was sort of $80 and prints 100 pages. This new printer is $18 for a cartridge and prints 7,000 pages. Wow. And to me, I know that's totally insignificant in the big scheme of things, but I look at it and the fact that I've told so many people about it and got so excited about it, and I think, really, I should be talking about getting more excited about making my next million rather than actually saving, you know, $100 on some ink cartridges. What is the way that we can shift from our focus?
Well, let me give a quick example first, Ross. So it's what we call infinity thinking, right? So infinity thinking is like this. So if I have one hand, because but if I had a glass here, right, and there was water in the glass, whatever degree, whatever amount is in there, it's not all the way to the top, it's somewhere in the middle, right? Would you say the glass is half full or half empty?
I always say it's half full.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a certain percent of your audience that'll say half full, and there's a certain percent that'll say it'll half empty, right?
Yeah.
Infinity thinking says, no, it's neither of those. It's actually all the time, just with two different substances.
Nice. Right.
In fact, it's always overflowing when you look at it. But what the difference is based on the scenario or situation that you're in, then you can determine if full is more important or half empty is. So if you're in the desert, half full is way more important than half empty.
But if you're in outer space, it's the other one.
Exactly.
Right.
So to understand that that always exists, the way you need it, how you need it, just a matter of where you're focusing your attention is all that comes into play. Our lives. We did a training this morning, which is all about that. How we have these in blinders that filter our perception, and unless you teach yourself to expand that and your perception of things, both visually, auditory, and like all your senses, if you don't practice expanding that awareness, then you're always going to be limited to what you've been conditioned to focus on or experience.
Interesting. Yeah, absolutely.
It keeps coming back to that conditioning.
So
we look at
and it's not
a
this or that world, right? It's a this and that and that and that and that, and you think in that mentality.
When we find ourselves asking the question that you were just saying, it's like, well, you know, is it wrong that I'm focusing on the money that I'm saving? No, it's not. Okay, because you can also focus on all the copies that you can make. Okay. and how productive that's going to be, and if they're the same quality, and if, you know, it's like, well, this was just a good investment. Great, that's one decision. Boom, it's done. Okay, but it's going to be that one little bit step closer. I've watched multi-millionaires struggle and debate with themselves and literally argue with themselves about spending $10 a month on something. Okay. Something so petty to where I was so frustrated. I'm just like, here, I'm just going to give you $10 out of my pocket because you're making me crazy and such. But I had to stop and say, what is he, or how is he thinking about that $10 that I'm missing? Okay.
Right.
And that was the key. This is like, okay, so I had to kind of get into his mind and say, tell me what's going on. Why is this such a big decision? because it's so little amount of money. And he says, well, you take that $10, you expand it over the course of a year or 2 years or 3 years or whatever the case. He goes, it comes to this much money. Do you know what I can do with this much money in the market, or how I can do that, take that money and invest it here instead? You know, so it's a whole different mindset of thinking. And it's like, I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, I
do
totally
now. I do now after that moment, the moment that I had, because I simply couldn't perceive what he was perceiving until I asked him. I just was going to ask him. I don't care if it's a stupid question. I don't understand. I need to understand this. And you know, and that moment has benefited me, you know, exponentially over the years. So we have to look at, again, that 10,000-foot view. You know, it's the man that says, okay, I'm going to buy a new car, but first I'm going to go buy a business that's going to pay for that new car.
Right.
Okay. And you know, I saw a video the other day where this 17-year-old, you know, there's a girl, her dad had taught her well. She's like, okay, I want to buy this car. I'm going to put this much down, but I'm going to go get this first. And that business is going to generate the money to pay for this car. And now I'm going to have the car and a business.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just like, where was somebody when I was 17 years old teaching me that? I was being conditioned differently.
Yeah.
You know, at that particular time. So, you know, and that's where it all comes down to is you stop putting limitations per se, or even boundaries at any time in my life, anytime. Okay. It is just because it didn't happen as a kid doesn't mean it can't happen when you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever. It doesn't matter. So it's because now that you know, then it becomes a choice. Oh, so you're choosing to stay this way because now you have a choice. Now you're aware, because we don't know. But when we find out what we don't know, then it becomes a choice.
Yeah.
And that's what we throw out to a lot of people is, as Garry was saying, the infinity thinking is really, you know, that's our kind of our tagline is transcending possibilities, because possibility is always negated by limitation. Well, that's not possible. Why is that not possible? What is making you not think that that is possible? And then they have to think about it, and they're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, you need to find out. You know, as we say, the process that we take is like, where were you when you found out that that wasn't possible? When were you that you found out that that wasn't possible? You know, who were you with when you found out that that wasn't possible? Or were told that, not found out, but were told that that wasn't possible and such. And then you start breaking that down, and it's like all these barriers, they just collapse like a house of cards. And all of a sudden, you mean it is possible. Yeah. It's not snap your fingers possible, maybe, but it's why would it be possible? I mean, look at, you know, was it 1932 that the guy that ran the patent office of the United States?
Oh, the what?
He was in charge of the patent office for the United States.
Oh, yeah.
And we might as well just close this office because there was nothing else that can be invented. Just like that dude should have been just like fired immediately. But again, he just had no imagination, obviously. But there's a lot of people like that. There's a lot of people that they just know the way it is. That comes to the ego. I'm right.
Yeah.
This can't be done. I'm right. And I'm going to prove to you that I'm right. You're like, okay, well, you go ahead. I'm going to be.
It's very, very narrow thinking. It's very tubular thinking,
and it's very prevalent. It's very, very prevalent.
It comes down to, and everything you were talking about there, Ross, was all about asking the right questions, because you were just drilling down one question after the next question after the next question. And
that's Garry's specialty.
Yeah.
Yes.
So important.
You know, I mean, again, look at his training. His training as a therapist. It's all about questions.
Yeah.
Very, very powerful.
The quality, I always say the quality of your life is directly determined by the quality of the questions that you ask yourself. But
one of the we teach is questions influence your point of view, and your point of view is everything.
Yeah. And it just gets that awareness too, doesn't it? Because people just go through unconsciously, just following patterns that are created in their life without even asking. And asking those questions create an amazing a shift, awareness, and then a shift from it.
Right.
So yeah, it's
What they do is they give you an understanding of the structure of the reality that you're creating, right? Because when you ask questions, in the form of so the way that we experience, and this is where some of our metaphysics comes in. It's also science too. So the way that we experience reality is based on space, time, energy, and matter, right? So the way that we figure out our structure of reality in those is so we got space. So we say, where were you when that happened, or when you experienced that? So now we understand the space of it. When were you experiencing that? So now we know the time of it, right? Energy is the things that are going on. So what were the that were happening? What was the emotion? So we get the energy of the experience, and then we and then know then the space-time, energy, and matter. Then we want to know, what are the things. So what were the things that were in your environment that let you, that is reality, that confirmed that was happening. This isn't a dream experience, right? So when we that structure of that reality, then all we need to do then, and this is where the infinity process comes in, then we need to look at, okay, if we understand the structure of that reality, how can we formulate a language of enlightenment that sparks creativity, that sparks excitement, that sparks joy, that sparks passion, that sparks your innate natural, and brings them to the forefront, so that the spirit in them, and then have that spirit in the matrix work with the language, understand the structure, and then transcend the matrix to this place of new, and like we said, transcending the possibilities, right? And so that works with what we call the 4 quadrants of reality.
Brilliant. There's an interesting there with all that metaphysical stuff, all the mind stuff, and also the biochemical processes that actually happen in your body. So particularly the endorphins and things.
And we do emphasize your health and your environment. The epigenetics of the human and such. Everything is affecting how you're thinking, your biology, the food you eat. I mean, the environment that you're in, the air that you breathe, the synthetic you're sleeping on, whatever the case may be. So all of that is having some little bit of an effect on you, or a lot of an effect. Nowadays, I mean, with all the new research that's coming out, it's having a much more effect on it than we realize.
There's so much research behind
and
it
so
now.
that's all affect you on a metabolic level, which is going to affect the neurotransmitters that are in your brain. It's all interconnected. Now we are conditioned again to compartmentalize everything. Okay, well, that's my sleep, so that's not everything. That's my food. That's that. And that's my environment. That's that. That's that. And it's like, no, they're all connected. You have 8 dimensions of your life that we talk about. And they're all interconnected, and they all have to be in some sort of a balance, not a perfect balance. And so we talk about imbalance a lot. And so, but they all have to be balanced to some degree. It's like it's going to be kind of like like a flow, like a wave. It's just like, okay, well, this one might be a little bit higher and this one might be lower, but eventually they're going to their ways to balance out in the long term. In the course of a year, you'll see that everything is pretty much balanced if everything works the way that we want it to work. But a lot of times people are like, I'm just going to work. I'm going to work and work and work and work and work, and then I'll spend this little bit of time with my family, or I'll spend this little bit of time on my health, or I'll spend a little bit of time on my playtime, and it's just like, no, to be a nice flow, an ebb and flow of your life throughout life and such. We don't, we're on this planet to work. We're on this to live, and work just supports that living.
On that, Ross, what's your take, Ross and Garry, on balance? Because as an entrepreneur, I struggle personally to get any balance in my life.
So here we'll just cut short.
Right.
It's a bunch of okay. we do not condone balance at all. We don't think it's something that anybody with any desire to strive for at all. Because when you think about balance, it means there's equalness on both sides. There's no movement. It's stagnant. That's not growth and it's not evolution. We are not designed that way.
Never were.
So we never were. What we say is what you want to create is imbalance. But what you want is an imbalance slightly tilted towards the side of growth and evolution instead of decay.
So you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
So you want to find an imbalance in these things. So to strive for balance, it's just not realistic. And that's where we struggle, just even psychologically and from a subconscious level, the mind has to struggle with balance, but that's not what the way we're designed. So it goes against your human nature. And that's why people have such a hard time with it.
So think of it like this. You know, you've heard of the research after they retire. They die after about 5 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Because then they settled in. They had nothing to strive for.
Couldn't think of anything worse.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then so then was it tips on the side of decay, right?
Yeah.
And
you know, the only thing that they have to look forward to, or in a lot of them, not everyone obviously, but you know, it's just like, you know, maybe improving their golf game, you know, or you know, finishing, you know, that long ass television or whatever the case, but you know, but it's just stagnation.
Yeah,
it's absolutely stagnation. I mean, in my opinion, I mean, I plan on working no longer can move or breathe. And such, you know, and I have, you know, I work very, very hard on, you know, maintaining my health so I can, and my physical attributes so that I can continue on. You know, there was a research that they did a couple of years ago where they were asking, you know, 100 people, how long do you want to live? Oh, 80 years old, maybe 80 years old. You know, oh, okay. Well, if you could remain the same condition physically that you are now, how long do you want to live? Oh, well, then 120. Oh, absolutely. And such. Well, then you need to start maintaining that condition now. And that's part of one of the dimensions of our of life, is maintaining this physical structure that we have so it can continue on. I mean, I see people who are just elderly, and sometimes not elderly, but just absolutely decrepit. And it pains me because I'll talk to them and they say, oh, this is just what it's like. And it's like, no,
they've accepted
not.
it.
It's not what it's like. You're allowing this to happen to you. You know, well, you know, and I mean, you know, from the background that you have, I'm sure you know of this. And so it's just like, but you know, I said, I plan on living till I'm 120.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of time out there now,
right now, you know, and I'm halfway there. And you know, so it's just like, you know, it's just like you need looking at this and this and this. Well, you know, my doctor said, I'm like, I understand. I said, but that's only his opinion. Okay. And what's his condition? You know, I go to the doctor and I'm just like, you're the one that's going to tell me how to be healthy? Are you kidding me? I said, when was the last time you picked up a research paper? Because I read research papers every freaking day. You know, so it's just like, so, you know, where are you getting your advice from? You know, and it shouldn't be TikTok.
It's funny. I've family members who are in their 60s and 70s who are quite certainly in the old mindset. You know, everything about them is old. My dad he's 82. He's about 100, between 100 and 200 kilometers a week, and he's just doesn't look like he's slowing down anytime. So, it's interesting.
Now he should be on TikTok showing people that it can be done.
Yeah, so I'm striving for balance, man. It's not a plan. It's just one of those other weight loss diet programs out there for the spiritual growth people that want to have some kind of diet for spiritual growth. And that's all it is.
That's funny.
It's a momentary fix where you feel okay for a while. And it doesn't mean that there isn't, you know, the sense of tranquility, but even in peace and tranquility, there's a sense of evolution that's going on. It's not balance. It's the definition of it needs to shift.
So what do you, Garry, to entrepreneurs out there who struggle with with the 120 hours today in the business. And when I'm doing that, I'm thinking, oh, my family's missing out. I'd love to be with the kids. I need to spend more time. And then they switch over and they spend a whole day with their family and they're going, geez, there's 100 tasks in the business I should be doing. How do you deal with that?
Well, again, so that's it. We don't want you to be on the extreme of either side of these.
Right.
We want you slightly tilted to the side of imbalance, right? But towards growth and evolution. So if what you're doing is not, if it's not towards growth and evolution, it's the other option is decay and de-evolution, right? So that pattern, then we say, okay, what can we to create a system and put a system in place? And we've created what we call a hero's compass, which talks about the 8 dimensions of reality that Ross was mentioning, right? And on that hero's compass, we have them measure where they rate themselves as far as their level of satisfaction in these different 8 levels. So they got career, they got finances, they got self-growth, they've got health, they got relationship, they got charity, they got playtime, they got spirituality. And so they look at this on a regular basis. We're always going back to how you doing on Hero's Compass. And on the Hero's Compass, we get a snapshot in the development world. The terminology is the wheel of life. So it's the same idea, right? But we just got it customized to the way we work with our clients. And so you're getting a snapshot of where a person's at in all these things, and it gives them an idea. Oh my God, I'm way too much on this area here on career, and I'm so low on this other. No wonder my life is bumpy like this. So we give them the reflection, the structure of their reality. So this gives them a structure of the reality they've created. And then we can go in and start to make adjustments. Okay, so next month then, how about instead of doing, 6 days work and 1 day with family and then coming back to the craziness, how we take a couple hours per day, right? And spread that hours that you did with your family and spread it out through a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when people come to you, how do you influence and build their growth? Is it a one-on-one, or is it group, or how do you?
We ask them a lot of questions to start with. A lot.
It's a combination. So we do some one-on-one depending on what the scenario is. We do some group work with certain programs that we have. It just depends on what the situation and scenario is when they come to work with us, because again, there's no one cutter, right? We have these resources that we have. We don't know what recipe we're going to put together for you or for the next person that we speak to until we find out what your structure of reality is and what the specific tools are that are needed to get you the reality you prefer.
Right. Excellent. And how can people with you guys and find out a bit more about what you do?
You want to go share with that, Russ, the links, or you want to?
So
I'll talk about
I forward the links over to you for our website, and then they can get a hold of either one of us at either Ross at infinitemasteryconsulting.com or Garry at infinitemasteryconsulting.com. We've got our website. We've got all of our training videos or all of our live streams. There's almost 200 of them on YouTube right now, and
there's some great stuff in there.
I'm telling you, those things, they almost, we put so much into them. We've had our own coaches who coach us and such, and like, you guys are giving away way too much information. Yeah. It's like, we
get in trouble all the time.
And we had this thought process of just, when we first started really focusing on like the whole online media and all that kind of stuff, we just were just content, and everybody's just like, you guys are doing way too many, kind of making the rest of us look bad. And it was like, well, this is what we want to do, because this is what people need. And it's, we've got live streams out there where Garry has done some processes, so if you're out there and you're listening to him, please, do not drive or operate machinery, because he will put you into a trance inside. Our website has got, we've got our master labs, where we take a lot of content, but then we show them, like, okay, now you're going to do this, you're going to implement this. And this is, one of the greatest problems I think that people have, is that we're just trying to absorb content, listening to it, reading books and such, but we're not implementing it.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, so you just read that book. Yeah. Okay. So what have you done? Have you implemented any part of that book? Well, not really. Like,
Right.
I'm just, because I started this other book, or I started this other, right? Or I went to this other seminar and such. And it's just like, they're the seminar junkies. They're the people, seminar guys live for.
Yeah.
And
They're the low lying fruit, aren't they?
our philosophy process, you're going to learn it once, but you're going to live it forever, because we implant it so deep into the subconscious that it just continues and continues day after day to work for you. It's amazing. It really is. We had one of our students. She was car accident. It was, wasn't really, really bad, but her car was totaled. And she stepped out of her car and she started to kind of like the panic feel, and she just stopped and she goes, I am what I think. And I think like a hero.
Wow.
And she just took control of the whole situation.
Wow.
And she called me almost within an hour. You're not gonna this. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna believe it. And but she's like, I had control.
Awesome.
I ended up getting a rental and still continuing with where I was going. She goes, that was just a bump in the road. She goes, I saw the whole picture. She went 10,000 foot view. She saw the whole picture, and she goes, that's just a little bump in the road. And so, and then she continued on.
That's so cool. I got shivers down my spine as you were telling that. That's really cool.
So did I.
We get those all the time.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Guys, I could talk with you all day. I love what you're doing.
Okay, I got some time. No.
Really, it's we need lots of this. People need that you guys offer. So good work on what you're doing. It's absolutely
thank you
awesome.
very much. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I think I could potentially collab a bit, you guys, on certainly. I'd love to do some stuff with I run a weight loss program in Indonesia. So what you guys offer would be quite amazing.
It worked really, really well.
Yeah,
it would be amazing. Yeah,
brilliant. Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much.
Okay,
and that's a wrap.
Almost. There we go.
Well, that was awesome. Keep optimizing your health, mindset, and business. Be awesome and make business awesome.